So today we talk about this character design. Looks pretty nice. Try to work as clean as possible, okay? But also the blocking in of either values or colors, right? Because when I zoom in here, floating around here, like this is not finally blocked in. This looks very, very sloppy. If I would be your art director, I would kind of like slap you on the fingers. We need clean block-ins, even though it's maybe one path. Make this stuff clean right from the get-go. I mean, we both know that does not take much time. It just takes a little bit of effort to block all that stuff in. So you also don't do yourself a favor if you spend the time on making a good line work and then you don't block the stuff in. It's kind of like meaningless, you know? It doesn't make any sense. I don't want to see that anymore, all right? May I ask why you went for the red color scheme? Right now, when I look from far, it's a bit like Santa Claus, you know? So I don't know if that's the intention. When you block in your stuff, it's kind of like mixed here. So I don't understand why the hair and the diamond and whatnot is on one layer, and also here the rest is also all on one layer. This is a little bit shitty because when we want to change anything, like this is good. All the bone is on one layer. That's good. But when we want to adjust this, for example, just with the slider, you know, then I adjust everything. I have to be the strict teacher here. I don't want to see that anymore. All right. Maybe I right now sound like an old grandma, but trust me, when you work professionally and time is your biggest enemy, everything that kind of gives you organization, everything that kind of like saves you time and helps you to keep organized, let you focus on other things like design, painting, whatever there is. Let's talk first about lines. So basically the design and the elements. And you see, like now that we come to the stage, I'm a bit more strict because we kind of like come to the serious phase where we want to get something done. And you already spent a lot of time, which is good, and it looks cool. So my job is to make you finishing that. So line art in general looks really nice. What I don't like to see is stuff like this. You keep basically things open, but it's important that every line needs to go somewhere, especially when we do lines. And this is also the reason why lines can look very shitty, very fast. It has to create form and shape. So it's our job to communicate this. Making sure that if we have stuff that wraps around a certain form, that the wrapping is correct. It has to wrap around, and that it doesn't look like it's just a sticker on something. Every time you draw a form, you also have the responsibility to make a good shape. Just a perfect even shape. We also want to create maybe a active side, so something that's happening, and maybe a passive side where the eye can continuously walk over. Every time you make a clean line work from your idea, where you already spend a lot of time to create that, it's kind of like a appreciation to yourself. Every time you do kind of like a sloppy block in, a sloppy line art, it's kind of like you don't care, but you already spent so much time of your life to create this. So why not making it clean? Kind of like a thing that not everyone brings to the table right away. I was the same. I'm also a person like when I paint, for example, I work super messy, especially when we create something for the portfolio that we are showcasing our best possible thing. Because imagine we want someone to pay us to draw or paint something. Let's say we would be chefs, right? And we cook a steak with chickpeas and whatnot, and we present it to the customer. It's not just slapped on the plate or something. We basically make it very nice that the person enjoys to eat it. Same way with the art that we create. Also, when you have contact shadows, there's a pretty cool trick. A lot of people do these days already. So for example, when you have a contact shadow, so you basically have two surfaces touching each other, especially when it comes to line, you can go again over it, basically create the fake ambient occlusion effect. So every time you draw something, I want you to ask yourself, is the form understandable and is the shape nice? These are the only two questions you need to ask yourself. Also here a good trick I learned by studying Mobius when it comes to hair and overlaps. Just when you have something like this, little trick of mine, just go over here and kind of like continue the line a tiny bit inside. That creates this fake illusion of there's overlap of the hair. So next time when you do just the block in for the gray, magnetic lasso tool, and what it does is basically when you have line art, you can just go over it and kind of like sticks to the black pixel of the line. So I can just quickly go over this here very fast tool and I just block that in. If I have something else, I just press Ctrl-Shift-I and kind of like erase everything which is above the border. And then I'm double checking it by turning the line art off to see how nice is the shape and is it sharp enough. And it's not sharp enough, it doesn't look nice enough. So I want very clean shapes here, because again, it's my job. I get paid for it. $10,000s every minute to draw little witches. You see, I had a lot of coffee today. This is why I talk so much. Maybe some pupils could be nice. So when we look at the values in Grayscale, first of all, we have clear value separation and we have contrast. We always want either have something light on something dark or something dark on something light. What we don't want is values too close to each other. So let's say this gray here is very close to this gray, which means they're very close, right? It's a 45 on my scale, and if I click on this, it's a 55, which means it's very close in the general value scale. We want either having one brighter, the other one darker. Always a bigger range of contrast. It becomes more complex when we have more elements. So if we have a layering effect on things on top, so we have to pre-think a little bit about that. So maybe it makes sense to make the dress darker. Now the elements come out. So now we have more contrast. We see much more of it. It makes it also easier to read if I zoom out, right? Why is this important? Because especially when we create characters for games or movies, we see these characters sometimes only seconds. These elements need to be readable right away. So even if we play maybe a game character, which is very small on a mobile game, and we see someone from far away, it needs to be clearly visible. Okay, what is the object I'm seeing? What is the character about? And what are the elements the character has that it's like distinguishable in only seconds? I play a warrior and I know all the range caster, wizard characters are the one that can like really hurt me. It needs to be immediately understandable that this is this type of character or enemy. When we do color, it is also the same rule as with values. We want to have contrast in values. We obviously also want contrast in colors. Now we don't deal with dark on light or light on dark. Now we deal with the warm on cool or cool on warm. So let's say we have all the bones on the elements, which means they're obviously more of a warmer tone. It makes sense to go for something cooler. So we have a better contrast there. Start with the big one. I always go from big to small. Let's start with this here. Now the trick obviously is that when we change the color, the value will shift a little bit. Say the experience that you have as an artist doing this process, but in the beginning you have to be very aware that when you start to colorize these flats, that the value will shift a little bit, and we try to stay as close as the value structure that we just built. Makes obviously sense. Nevertheless, sometimes we have to move the values a little bit to achieve a certain look, a certain color, because not all colors work perfectly all the time. That looks nice already. I like the blue. Warm, 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 warm. Now it gets cooler when we're in the greens. Here everything is cool, 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 cool. Purple's even cool, but then it gets warm again. Even her is a zombie, so there's a lot of cool stuff you can try. Send. Janos. Updates. So let's go through this. Let's go through this. Yes. Yes.